a Thinking Man's podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome back. This is the fourth episode of a Thinking Man's podcast. I'm your host. My name is Joseph PIRCHER. Alongside me, as always, Tommy Stiles. And today we are proud to present to you a very, very special guest. We have IFBB Pro Dusty Hanshaw with us. What's up, Dusty? How are you, man?
What's going on, guys? I appreciate you guys having me on, especially fourth episode. I feel like an OG of the new show now. It's great.
Yeah, you're the first guest that we've had. We're going to be doing a rotation. We come to the audience basically every Monday, and we're going to try to do it so that every fourth episode, so once a month, we have a guest, and nobody better to kick it off with than you. So really appreciate you taking the time to come on. Tommy, I'm going to kind of swing this over to you because obviously Dusty's your guy. We wouldn't have the pleasure of having Dusty on the show if not for your relationship. So why don't you get us rolling?
Yeah, so not going to be a typical podcast with Dusty on it today. There's a topic at hand. So by now, if you're watching us, you've probably already heard of Dusty Hanshaw. You know of his past, DC training, how he became a pro, all that. So instead of spending the first half hour covering that, I wanted to know, and I wanted to put out an episode of how would Dusty Hanshaw go about starting his legacy and career in bodybuilding today versus how he had to do it in the past. Obviously, with social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, the coaching industry is much bigger now than it was, 10, 15 years ago. So, Dusty, you're kind of like the bridge of the OG, train hard, keep your head down, but you also marketed that for 2 decades, and that's what got you to where you are. And I think, Dusty, you and I talk all the time, Muscle Factory, the gym out in Arizona that I train at and you did train at, a lot of college kids, a lot of kids wanting to get into the fitness bodybuilding industry and make a name for themselves, get sponsored, all this shit. So let's give them an idea of how you would go about doing it, because you have created a successful life basically lifting weights. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's what we do. We lift weights and get paid in a way. So I kind of want to just, how would Dusty Hanshaw start out today versus how he started out in the past?
It's actually a great question. It's something that we've touched on here and there in our conversations. The first thing that I would do that I think will shock people is, if this is your goal, if your goal is to, and whether you want to be an influencer, a pro bodybuilder, whatever it is, at the end of the day, to be successful in as a pro bodybuilder, anything, you are an influencer. I know everybody hates that word, but if you're not that, you're not getting paid. So the first thing I would do is tell your story. Everyone loves to tell a story once it's complete. It's really, if you ever notice, everyone's ready to show you their before picture as soon as they have their after picture to put next to it. They don't want to tell you the beginning. I would love to see, like, if I was coming in now, like the very, very beginning, I would market my first prep. I'd market my push into bodybuilding. I would discuss things I struggle with because it surprised people. But like when I first got into bodybuilding, I can't even say bodybuilding. When I first went into the gym, I went to Gold's Gilbert, which now it's still the same gym. That was the first big gym I went to with a bunch of meatheads in it. And I remember walking in and being like, whew, very small fish in what I thought was the ocean, which was actually just a little bit of a big pond. And it was a little intimidating to kind of get rolling. But I think a lot of people should share that from the beginning, because those are things that a lot of people don't realize. Like, it probably surprised people to see someone like me say, oh yeah, it was a little intimidating walking to the gym, seeing all these guys, knowing I didn't really know what I was doing, and put that out there. Because I know when I was coming up, I followed guys who were above me, and I found out they were going through a lot of the same things I was. I used to follow Fuad when he used to do written blogs, and I'd read the blogs and be like, oh man, you do that too? Like, you're so much better than me, but you have the same struggles, or the spending problems during prep and things like that we all do. So I think that would be my first step. The next thing would be identify what you really want. I think the one thing that I despise about social media is people are trying to create content that they think their followers will like. My least favorite thing that I love, that I see all the time written or said is, "Hi followers, what would you like to see from me?" The fuck?
Right.
Do what you want to do. Do what is you. And that's what's going to get the right followers following you. Some people are going to be like, this guy's useless to me. I don't need to follow him. Unfollow. That's okay. If you're producing the content that's truly who you are, you're going to get your true following. I really do think that most people, when they're putting out their content, they're trying to create this alter ego of who they are based on what they think people want. The problem with that is what they're really doing is copying someone else. You're not going to be the next Steve Cook. You're not going to be the next Brad Martin, because everyone will go, oh, he's doing what Brad does. Oh, he's doing what Steve does. I chose those two because they couldn't possibly be more different. And neither one of them is living off of bodybuilding, but they have enormous followings from bodybuilding. And what they did is they put out their own brand, every single day. So put that out. Very, very key. And then I think a lot of what I'm saying is exactly what I did, to be honest with you. Like, when I got into this, I wasn't thinking about making a name on social media. We had a camera, we were doing things, and I was just living. And we happened to record it and put it on the internet. So what happened is people got to love or hate the real me, and that was fine. It was entertaining. They gave them something to watch, but it was just me being me. I mean, I literally would be out doing things. The first Costco video we did, I needed to go grocery shopping. My video guy was in town, and he's like, I'm going to film you. I was like, weird. Okay. Went into Costco. We filmed it. I was joking with him, forgetting that he's holding a camera, just going back and forth the entire 30-minute shopping spree. And, a few 100,000 views later, I was like, oh, people like this. I don't know why. Like, it never even occurred to me to do that. So now we all know what to do. It's just people want to see content. I've talked to a lot of people who are very, very successful in this, and their advice is film everything. If you can film everything you do, do it. Then put some of it on the internet and see what happens. The only place that I do get, I guess I say, I don't care what anyone does. What you do is up to you. If you want to be a loser, you want to be awesome, you want to make millions, you want to be broke, it's not my business. But if you're trying to make it in this industry, you can't be a fraud. So you can't be better at editing your videos and talking about being hardcore and then blatantly not being it. I think that the one thing that's gotten a little broken along the way is when I was coming up, guys like me would be doing this with or without the camera. I'd still be training right now if I wasn't getting paid. Like, there's nothing I would rather do. I don't know how to train any other way. This is what I like to do. There just happens to be a camera there. I think where some guys are missing is they're thinking they're going to build this brand, but for what? Like, you're not doing anything that makes people go, fuck yeah, I want to do that too. And I think at the end of the day, to kind of summarize it, is the most successful people are giving their viewers something. And you have to ask, what am I giving today? Is it inspiration? Is it education? Is it, comedy and entertainment? What am I giving? That always has to be what you're thinking about. But I think most of the want to be influencers are saying, what do I have to do to get what I want? How do I get followers? What about me? That is their whole sole approach to everything they're doing. If you flip that, I promise that's where it grows. It's got to be just putting out good content, and the right people will come, and that's really all I would do. I mean, just keep it simple. The only other thing I would say I would do differently that I didn't do back then was I would be proficient in all of these social medias, and I would know how to do my own editing, because back then I would fly Todd into town. We'd spend 4 days together. We would film everything we did, literally 18 hours a day. And then he'd go home and drop it. That's not fast enough anymore. In fact, I'm dealing with that with Mutant right now. I did a video, God, what was it? When did I go to Tennessee? A month and a half ago? They put the first video up today. I'm like, too long. They want to see me training on Instagram today and the video on YouTube tonight, tomorrow, at the latest, the end of the week. So that's why I would say being able to do your own editing and stuff would be enormous.
Yeah, and I think it comes down, like, you made several great points, but one of the takeaways, and that the one that you kind of closed with there was a point we were trying to make last week. We did an episode basically on the business of coaching, because Tommy and I put out there that we're full-time coaches, and then we have all these people that say, hey, I want to leave my job, I want to be a coach, I want to be able to do this full-time. What's the trick, what's the secret? And a big piece of it is that you have to have an undeniable value that you offer other people. Like, the value that you offer other people has to be greater than the person next to you, or the coach next to you, or what have you. So I think that's just a great point. And then another point that I took away from that was the example that you used of people that are like, what do you want to see? And it's like, anytime I see that, like you said, I almost want to unfollow the person, because I'm like, what, you're just going to be a puppet to whatever your followers tell you to do? Like, you need to put out what you're doing for yourself and what you actually want to do. So all great stuff there. And one of the things that I want to add it along the same line of thinking is, on Instagram right now, especially, I feel like there's this big theme from some of the guys that are in a similar position to what you're in, where, you've been in the game for 20 years, you've earned your stripes, you're an OG of the game. A lot of the guys in your spot now are it seems like they're kind of bitter, or they haven't adapted to the current times, and they're like pissed about seeing all these kids that film in the gym and post on social media and all these different things. So, like Tommy mentioned, you're kind of someone that's done both. Like, you're accepted in the OG hardcore community, but you also built an entire career off filming in the gym. So I've wanted to hear, as a fan of yours, I wanted to hear your perspective on it. Selfishly, because it's something that I've struggled with. I always viewed myself as one of these guys, like, I'll just come into the gym and do the work, and you don't have to see it, and on the day of the show you'll see what I've been working on. But then also, it's like, I want to do this as a career and build my business, and it's kind of a necessary evil. I have to film everything, like you just outlined for us. So I'd like to hear your perspective on, seeing these kids that are filming in the gym, or just seeing people in general that are trying to market themselves.
Well, first off, when mentioning the guys who have a problem with it, I view them very similar to Blockbuster Video. We're set in our ways. Fuck this, streaming and all this crap. And if you don't adapt, you die. Now, a lot of kids that are listening to this are going to have to Google Blockbuster Video, because they don't know what the hell that is. That's a company who literally thought they were just going to keep doing what they were doing while the world was changing and survive. Life, business, very simple. Adapt, migrate, or die. Those are your choices. So anyone who has an issue with that, they're going to be the ones that die, and so be it. That's how it should be. As far as what I think, the first step to being successful in anything is forget what anyone else thinks. What are you doing this for? I think a lot of people, like yourself, I'm sure there are kids in the gym who say want to film or want to put up the thing, but they have this fear of how other people are going to perceive it. Maybe they're squatting 135 and they want to film it because it's for 10 and they've never done that. And it's like, I don't know if I want to post that because, I saw Dusty Hanshaw do that with 600. No one's going to like this. Don't even think that way. Everything has to be, what do you want, and fuck what anybody else thinks. A lot of people have this frozen mentality because they're worried about what other people think. I'll be honest with you, I've told this to Tommy many times. When I hear the word hater, I'm always surprised, because I'm so disconnected to whether people love me or hate me that I don't even notice. I'm like, not to bring up an obvious, but like, I was stunned when I got sick last year that people gave a shit, because I was just like, I had no idea that many people cared. So that's what I mean is, in order to not be influenced by negatives, you also can't be blinded by positives. You can't pat yourself on the back because 100 people commented on your video. So to anybody that wants to do this, you just have to go all in and start filming, do your thing. The only thing I suggest is be mindful the same way I am. Like, if I'm training alone, I make sure to set up my camera in a way that it's not screwing anyone else up. It's not in their way. And it doesn't distract me. It literally takes me 2 seconds. I mean, Tommy knows when we train, he and I on a spot, we set a camera that's been on the tripod the entire time. You set the tripod up, you make sure you can see yourself in it, you push record, you walk over, you do your set, you hit stop. That's it. It's not, I hear OG guys saying, oh, that's distracting. There's no way you could be training hard and doing that. And I'm like, how fucking dumb are you? You can't push a button and then go do your set. I could just hear a joke and go deadlift 800 pounds. Like, if your mind is that weak, maybe you shouldn't record. But, as far as who has the right to record and do shit, I hate that. That'd be like me saying, well, if you can't, if you can't do 5 plates aside on the Arsenal shoulder press, then you shouldn't use it. What? Right. So it's the same. I mean, if you have a gym membership and you have a phone, you can film your shit. Because the other thing is, you got to remember what's working out there. I mean, there are kids I see with enormous followings, doing the damn thing. And I'll be honest, I laugh because I'll see some of their content. And I'm like, okay, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. The video quality is okay at best. Fuck, maybe I should ask him some questions because this kid is killing it. And I don't even understand how, and I say that with respect because it's like, well, shit, man. I mean, as someone who knows the depths of what you think you're talking about, how did you get 80,000 followers? I don't know, but hats off. And I'm talking about people legit because I know there's plenty with fakes. I sent one to Tommy recently a couple months ago and I was like, man, you see this kid in the gym, tip your hat because fuck, I don't know how he did it. His physique looks like mine did at 22 years old, natural. And he doesn't really know what he's doing. And he's got a huge following. I'm thinking, fuck, man, respect. You're somehow putting out content that people like. So, I'm not one that's going to pick on that because that would be, that'd be like someone like a Flex Lewis looking at me and be like, well, he's not a bodybuilder. He ain't winning the Olympia, and to tie that point in, the reason I brought Flex up for a lot of you guys is you hear things about like, oh, like you said, I'll just do my own thing and wait until I'm there. The first time I met Flex Lewis was at the Olympia. And I was literally at the gas booth looking at clothes and I hear this guy yell out, Dusty Hanshaw. And I turn around and it's Flex Lewis. And I'm like, why do you know me? And he's like, man, I love your videos, but you got to put out more content, man. Cause I'm dieting for the Olympia. I watch your shit all the time. And they're just, I could have used more. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like I was, at that stage, I don't even think I hadn't even done a pro qualifier yet. So Flex was, winning or right at the top of the 202 at the time, I think it was. So he was in the mix at the 202 and, already was following my shit as a complete amateur with 1 overall win. So don't let where you put yourself confuse you. Cause I won't lie. I was stunned. I'm like, how do you even know me? Why do you know me? And the reason was because I was putting out content. The motherfucker was bored like the rest of us doing his cardio, did a Google search for, or a search on YouTube for bodybuilding shit. And there it was. So, don't be afraid to do that stuff at an early level because who knows, you might get a DM from me asking you how the hell you did that video because I need some help.
Yeah.
I think like we've talked about, like, it's not that the biggest issue is with, younger people or newer people documenting. It's the way they go about delivering their message. Everything is, it's hype. Hype is the big thing right now. Everyone has to have a caption that makes it sound like they grew up oppressed and they're doing this to prove all their haters wrong. Like you talked about, like, it doesn't have to be that. Post a hack squat video, say, this is where I'm at currently. I was here previously. I added, 2 plates to each side. I hope to be here in the future. Like, you could leave it there. You're documenting your progress. You're giving your followers content to look at. You're providing value, but it doesn't always have to be this fucking hype train. Everyone wants to like make them. I don't blame him, but it's kind of the Chris Bumstead deal where how he carries himself. And by the way, I'm not talking shit about Chris. He's phenomenal, but that mantra has carried down to like kids who've had a gym membership for 6 months. are showing up to the gym with a camera, fully decked out and, $200 worth of gym swag, and they haven't even learned how to press or squat yet. So I think what you're saying about documenting and videoing early is smart. But the biggest thing is just be humble in how you deliver the message.
Well, the key is what you said, which is you're documenting, you're not creating.
Right.
People are trying to create. So they're trying to think of this big thing and they're, look up the definitions. Documenting is literally, this is what happened today. The end. And of course you're going to edit it a little bit and whatever, but at the end of the day, document is fact. Create is we sit down in a think tank. We're trying to figure out what will get us the most likes. And I just don't think that that's the right route for the long term. So that's why I said it that way. And also, don't be afraid to be where you are. I'm amazed in this industry, even at the highest level, that people are afraid to give credit where they learned things. I will put up a movement and someone will be like, man, I learned that from you. I love that movement. And I'll literally answer, go, yeah, I learned it from John Meadows. Like, I think there's only like one thing that I can think of, which is my calf stretching that I created in 17 years in the industry. I learned from people. I talk to people, they teach you stuff. And I was, that's another thing I had thought about before we started this was advice I would give to someone coming up is you have no idea the importance of people liking you. And that sounds funny. But what I mean is if you're an asshole, you're going to have trouble in a small industry. In 2000, I don't even know what it was, 14, 15, something like that. I lost my contract with iForce on 2 weeks notice. I went from making a lot of money to zero money in 2 weeks. Now, most people would be in a real jam at that point. Like, how the hell am I going to replace this money? And so I was still, was I pro? I think I was just a pro. So I was a new pro, but I knew where I was at. Anyone else knew where I was at. So a lot of people would be in a jam. I sent 3 emails and got 3 offers because I had established who I was in the industry also as a human. And that is key because, it's that easy. You can get people to take the phone call or accept the email. And you guys know, Joe, more than anybody how many emails you get for sponsorship and how many people want something. But when an email comes through with a name that that's respected throughout the entire industry, that one gets opened.
Yeah, like you said, like that was what I did for a living for 4 years. And case in point, to be honest, man, 85% of those emails, I would always send a response. Just that's how I wanted to be known for doing business. Mm-hmm. But man, 85 or 90% of those emails are names that I didn't even know that didn't belong emailing me about a sponsorship from the Animal Pack brand. Mm-hmm. But I hear that Dusty Hanshaw is interested, even when we're not signing athletes or we don't have the budget to sign athletes. And it's like, what's your phone number? I'm going to call you right now. Mm-hmm. Because it's just a different level of respect. So, yeah, all good things there. And if you guys don't mind, though, I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit and make it a little bit more X's and O's bodybuilding, because I think a lot of the comments that we've got about what we've done on the show so far, people are looking for that stuff. Mm-hmm. And something that really stood out to me, you just put this up recently, and it's been a hot topic of some of the feedback that we got about some of our topics. I personally am going through a phase right now where I'm in a long off season. I'm years away from looking how I want to look. And a big positive change that I've made is I've just decided I'm not doing cheat meals. It just seems like it sets me back anytime I do one. And I can't be one of these people that just has one scheduled every Friday for no reason other than that it's Friday. It feels like I'm going to lose 3 or 4 days of progress if I do it. And that's not for everybody. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is on It's Just Bodybuilding on the show that you do with Ron and Scott. You recently said, and this stood out to me. you got to ask the question about like, did your heaviest off season lead to the best progress? And your response was, my best progress came not, necessarily at my heaviest, but I think you said from 2010 to 2011, it was like an 18-month period where you didn't eat a single gram of food that Chris Aceto didn't send you on your plan. And that was when you made your best progress. And then you also went on to say, and I've struggled with this myself because I'm going through this for myself and I see the result of it. But then I have all these people that I help and it's like, oh, I need to bring my wife out every week. Oh, I want to have a social life, all this stuff. But then these same people are telling me that, in their intake form, they sign up with me. I want to be a professional bodybuilder. And at a certain point, the rubber hits the road. And I need to tell these people, look, like, you want to be a professional bodybuilder? You want to do this as a professional. Like, that doesn't give you the right to eat fucking cookies and pizza every Friday just because it's the weekend. So I'd like to hear your perspective on that, especially, 10 or 12 years removed from that time period. So like, what was your life like? And what was the thinking when you just decided like, man, this matters to me more than anything. I'm going to do without it. And then also if you could add at the end, maybe like how you manage that with your clients, because obviously, you have a huge coaching roster as well.
For me, I'll be honest with you, it was easy. I hired Chris Aceto. I DM'd him at the time. And I'm just going to walk you through the process a little bit so you understand. A no-name person who's won one show, and I mean, to Chris Aceto, I'm a no-name person. He's not watching YouTube. He's too busy. I reach out to Chris Aceto. I DM him, hey, this is me. I want to work with you for a show, whatever. He responds back, okay, let's do it. It's $3,500 or $4,000, whatever it was. And at the time, it was, send me the money, like mail it, which is comical. And we'll get started. So when I'm serious about something, I move different than most people. Tommy knows this. I cry to him on the regular because I don't understand the way people think. I left my house when I received that email, went straight to the bank, got a money order because I didn't even want him to mess with a check. And I overnighted it to him for $27 or whatever it was. He gets the check the next day and he texts me and he says, hey, got the check. Don't ever waste $27 overnighting something to me. And I said, well, I want to start. So we got started. And at that moment, he accepted me to work with him. I wasn't going to waste his time. That was it. I mean, it's just that simple. Like, I'd love to have a deep conversation about what it was. The person I wanted to work with more than anyone said yes, and we were going to do this. So I dove in. We started immediately. I got the diet in the mail or, email, got started. We cranked away. I want to say 9 or 10 months later, we were talking and he was like, he said, how many times a week do you have something off plan? And I said, none. And he was like, what do you mean none? He's like, you haven't had anything off plan in 10 months? I said, no. He goes, oh, I just assumed in the off season, everyone has a little something. And I was like, no, you didn't tell me to. And he was like, well, all right, then this weekend, I want you to go out and I want you to do this. And he's like, but I want pictures the next day and I want to know what happens and I want to know what you ate. So I was like, okay. And I won't lie to you. We went to dinner. Then after dinner, I ordered a pizza, ate, took pictures the next day, sent them to him. And he's like, shit, you needed that. And then he started putting things in the plan. But I told him right then and there, I said, hey, I'm not really good at like go eat something. So just tell me what to go eat and I'll eat it. And he was like, okay. And that was it. So when I worked with Chris, that's just how it functioned, because the bottom line is this, and this is where I think a lot of people have gotten confused. I was very, very aware that I was not born to be a professional bodybuilder. So in my head, I had zero wiggle room to make mistakes going against guys that I shouldn't be able to beat. I needed them to make a mistake. That was the only way to do it. So the thing that I think is interesting is I didn't want anything else. Like when somebody says, oh, you're missing out on life. I'm like, no, this is my life. This is exactly what I want to do. And at that point in my life, it was exactly what I want to do. Now, however many years removed from competing, now I go out and have things if I want to. It's fine. I'm in a different phase. But to me, when you're locked in and you're really serious, I guess there's levels. There's levels to everything in life. But the reason that I made it, I firmly believe, is because I was psychotic. It's the same reason I make it in any other thing. It's like I said, to me, it's as simple as the overnighting the check. Like a couple of weeks ago, I decided I wanted to get a new house on a Wednesday. I bought it on a Thursday, the next day. Like, found it, bought it, done. Like, I don't understand any other way to think. Just don't. So now switching over to the topic that you asked, how do I deal with clients? My clients decide how that works. I'm completely okay. And the majority of my clients, I actually have found, if I don't give it to them, they'll take it. And that's not a shot on them. It's just the way it is. And that's okay. That's their goal. And the one thing I've had to learn as a human and as a coach is I can't put my desires on someone else. To me, it's not a sacrifice to do that. To them, it is. So I just do the math. I'm like, listen, you're eating 42 meals a week. If one of them is literally whatever the fuck you want, we're still at 90 something percent perfection. Good enough. And for some people, that is truly enough to keep them rolling, gives them some headspace, keeps their wife or husband support. Because that's the other thing is, I was married to somebody who understood that I would stop at nothing. And so she jumped on board. She's like, okay, cool. I don't eat out either. Like, it's just a different thing. So I think a lot of people don't have that. So there's nothing wrong with, I hate sounding like Mr. Hardcore. It's just how I did it. And like you said, you have to find that line for yourself. How do you feel? And if there's a time, even for you, 6 months in, that you're like, man, I would kill for a cheeseburger. It's like, well, then fucking go have it and then move on. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the only thing. I mean, you do have to factor that in, because if you're a coach that's just 12 months a year, 365 days a year, this is what we do, you're going to be broke, because there aren't many people like that it's worth it to them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Tommy knows most of my clients are actually weekend warriors. They didn't compete. So it's absolutely important that I find that balance. So I find the majority of my enjoyment with training people is actually training their brain. Yeah. I love teaching people how to win in life, because it's all the same. I mean, it's like Tommy, we worked together for, a pretty good amount of time before he moved, but we worked in the gym, but we worked well beyond the gym. The reason he is where he is because at some point it clicked to him that he could have whatever the fuck he wanted. And I mean, whatever the fuck he wanted. I don't think most people even understand that that's not reserved for special people. It's reserved for people who are crazy enough to go for it.
Yeah, that's really, I kind of figured that would be the response. And that's kind of how I phrase it to these people, because it's more just a matter of aligning your actions with the things that you say that you want. Like, you can say that you want to be a pro bodybuilder. You can say that you want to build a huge following, all these different things. But if you say that you want to be a pro bodybuilder, for the majority of us, that means that you can't afford to miss. Yeah, 41 out of 42 meals might be good enough for some, might be good enough for Chris Bumstead or Ian Valle. But for the majority of the people that I'm helping, and for me, myself, 41 out of 42 is not going to be good enough. You are going to come short if that's how you look at things. So, yeah. And, you were like, one of the things that stood out to me, you're like, I just move different. The best way that I could explain everything that you were just talking about, Marshawn Lynch would say, you're just about that action, boss. That's when it comes down to it, you're just about that action. So yeah, I think there's a lot for the audience to take away from all that.
Yeah.
It's a sense of urgency. It's the one, one of the many things that Dusty has instilled in me over the years is and it started when we were in a long off season, because I initially came to him in 2017 wanting to take an entire year off before I competed again. It was to be patiently aggressive. Just because you're going to take a year off doesn't mean you let off the throttle. Like, the foot has to stay on the throat the duration of all that off time, so the drastic changes can be seen a year later. It's the same thing with all actions. I've told this on the last episode or the episode before, like, I literally sent an email telling Dusty I was thinking about moving. He said, as far as your move, fuck it. 3 weeks later, I was in a car heading west. Like, you just decide to do things. You either do or you don't. Like, that can't be taught. I've found working with people, you either have that gear in you to like make those decisions or you don't, but at least you can inspire the desire to make more of those decisions for people. So, we're talking about cheat meals here, but that kind of applies to all things in life.
Yeah. I think one thing that I have pressed in many, many podcasts over the years is remembering it's a privilege. And I'm talking about everything. So I never looked at it like, oh, I have to eat this food every single day. I thought, I have the opportunity to do these things to reach my goal. It's the same thing I have now. Like, I work 7 days a week, every single week. And I always think to myself, how lucky am I that I'm so busy that I have to do that? Like, talk about a privilege. It's amazing to know that if I took a day off every week, it would be a train wreck. Like, there's just be too many things to do. So it's all about how you look at those things and realize, like, I'm fortunate. I do have some people that I used to follow, and not even just in bodybuilding, but I mean, hairdressers and barbers and things. And they would complain about how busy they are. Oh, it's a 60-hour week. And I'm like, wow, you are complaining because your business is doing well. I mean, you could just turn down some clients if you wanted. You could lose that money. Maybe you'd lose the whole business and you'd have a lot of free time. That'd be nice. It's a wild thing. And I think if you change your perspective to everything, what you're willing to go through changes. It's everyone wants that big thing. They want the money, or they want the pro card, or they want that. And they forget that comes from accepting the privilege to be able to do the work, And I think that's where things get confused, because it is nice to have a full roster. Like you said, Joe, when you're getting started and you're like, now I can finally do this full time. It's going to be really nice when you do have and I do this. I mean, I'll have a day trip or something that's just a long day. And the next day I have 30 check-ins to do. Yeah. And you're like, whew. I mean, I get up in the morning and I'm like, here we go. Let's do this, and just burying them. But it's exciting because I remember having 2 check-ins to do a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all perspective. How would you go about, because the thing I see, how would you go about telling someone coming into it to stand out? Because to make a career in this and to actually be able to pay all your bills and to put money into retirements and do something for yourself in 20 years, like, it's a blood sport. Like, this isn't for everyone, becoming a coach and making money out of this industry. So to the younger person listening, how do you stand out? How do you go about that?
This to me is simple, and life is a blood sport. I think that's one thing that people need to know. And here's the good news. Most of your competition are pussies. So you can literally run them over because they're not willing to work with you. They're just not. And that is the simple answer. If you want to be successful, outwork everyone. Have your standard higher than anyone else's. I had clients on Saturday, messaging me, and they realized, because I had 5 clients competing on Saturday, and they realized starting at 4 a.m. with the check-ins, midday, it's your birthday. I'm like, yeah, what's up? I'm also at a movie. Anyways, send your stuff. Like, and that they were like, I really, at the end of the day, I really appreciate you staying so on it on your birthday. And I'm like, of course. This is the job. Like you don't take days off for your birthday. Your show is this year only. My birthday will happen next year. It's fine. And maybe when I'll die, but you never know. But I mean, realistically, that simple thing. And my point is that should be expected. And the world has dropped expectations so low that I laugh because people are amazed when someone does the bare minimum. You know, like I joke, but it's like you feel like couples are like they're waiting to see a post that's like, you know, my boyfriend Brad hasn't slept with any other women in the last week. He's such a good guy. I'm like, that's supposed to be the bare minimum. Anyways, okay. I'm glad we're celebrating Brad staying solid for a week. But think about that. So when you're approaching your business, that's it. Like look across the board. I see stuff, even from people that are friends of mine, people that I respect, you know, hey guys, I got a headache, so I'll get with y'all tomorrow. What? You have a headache? The last time prime example, and Tommy, you know this because you were there. When I didn't respond to clients, they immediately knew there was something very wrong. And I was in a coma because they knew. It's like one day was weird. 2 days was what the hell is going on? You know what I mean? And they don't
see the social media either. So
yeah. So it's like there's an issue. So I think that's something that you do. But when you establish, and this is something we've talked about on a lot of podcasts, and Tommy and I've, Joe, my dad had a standard for me that was higher than anyone else's in the world could possibly be. And I appreciate it so much because now my standard for me is higher than anyone else's. Like when Mutant, you know, sent me my contract, and I mean, I couldn't remember, it'd been a year, with what I had to do in a month, I laughed. I'm like, well, I'll probably do that in 3 days.
You're like, that's it?
Yeah. And people, and you know this because you've dealt with athletes, people get that and then fall short. And then they can't believe that they're losing their contract or their whatever. And you're like,
right,
you had to post 7 posts this month.
Right. You had to click a button on Instagram 7 times over the course of 30 days. And you couldn't follow through with it. You had to be reminded like you were in fucking grade school.
Yeah. What I think also, I mean, and this is just an example, but just so you guys know, like I don't ever like to falsely put myself out there. Like I have had issues. Like maybe 3 months ago, I have no idea how, but a client sent his check-in. It came in. I don't know if I accidentally opened it on my phone, whatever, but I didn't see it. And 3 days passed, and then he responded. And I usually tell my clients, if you don't hear from me within 24 hours, send it again. Something happened. But he was newer, and it didn't come through. And I looked, and he's like, I don't know what happened. And I was like, fuck. It was there. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. It was there. I literally messaged him back and said, you have a choice. I can either send you $50 back to your Venmo or short me 50 on next month. What do you want to do? And he's like, no, that's not necessary. I'm like, no, it is. This is how we work. Like, if I don't hold this standard, what am I different about? So it's very key. And the reason I point that out is not because I'm an all-star. It's because if you make a mistake, you also got to call your own shit and say, okay, I have to pay for this, so that your client knows I ain't fucking around. I mean, he'd only been with me like 2 months. That's a really bad mistake very, very early in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, so I think, again, that's back to that standard. And then when people see that, they understand, like, okay, this guy's with me. He's not just collecting checks. He's not just regurgitating shit and sending it out to me. Like, you know, he offered up money back for what people would call a mistake of being human. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're instilling in that guy right away, like, a level of accountability. And also it's like it was a mistake, but now this guy also sees, like, you are hyper aware of the value that he is getting in return. Like, if he's paying you $200 a month and you do a check-in once a week, like, he's basically paying you $50 a check-in, because you're only going to check in 4 times over the course of a month. And it's like, hey, I'm super aware of the fact that every piece of communication that you get from me is worth something. And I think too, like, you brought up something too that I want to touch on, because I have a buddy in the industry. You might know him, Gary Turner. He's a longtime bodybuilder. He's an animal athlete. And we talk about it all the time, man. Anytime one of these, like, people that coach or has their own business makes a post on Instagram, it's wild to me that they make it public. And two, like, I just couldn't imagine it where it's like, oh, like you said, like, oh, traveling today, or, I have a headache today. So clients, I'll get with you by the weekend. And it's like, Tommy asked the question, how do you stand out? And he meant it in like, how do you stand out for the positive? You do that, especially publicly. That's a great way to stand out in as a negative. I see that. And anytime over the course of my bodybuilding career, I saw someone make a post like that, I crossed you off the list of somebody that I would ever consider hiring, because it's like, man, the coach. So I've worked with John Jewett. I've talked about it. Anyone that knows me knows my relationship with John, but I've been working with John for years. But the coach that I was with before that, to your point about, oh, it's your birthday or whatever, we were in a show prep and it was like, oh, I'm not going to be getting to your check-in now, and it'll be a couple days because it's our dog's birthday and we make a big deal about it. And at the time I was just like, oh, like, I don't have pets, but I guess people make a big deal about their dogs or whatever. On the flip side of it, I was in an off season, sent John a check-in. He was at the Olympia and responded to my check-in in between prejudging and finals. And it's like, there's just a different level to that. And that's something that I had to share publicly, because it's like, man, that's something that has stuck with me forever. Even as John and I have grown to be close friends, it's like, that's just holding yourself to another level. So yeah, a lot of good stuff there. I don't want to hold you too much longer. I know that we're coming up on an hour, and you're a busy man, as you've made clear. So I had one other thing that, and I'd like to kind of make this a habit of asking the people that we have on moving forward. So I'm going to kick it off with you. So I'm always curious because, I see people answer this online and stuff, and I always feel like I personally get a lot of value out of it. So I want to ask you, Dusty Hanshaw, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten, and what is the worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
I'll start with the worst, because that's my personality. The worst advice I've ever gotten was be patient. And I know that probably throws you off because you're thinking, wait, don't we preach that? You have to be patient with your expectation of results, but you have to be obsessive with the work that needs to be done every day to get those results. I think a lot of people use the word patience as a way to be lazy. So when I hear the word be patient, and to give an example, when I got out of surgery, and I don't think I was fully aware of my brain yet at this point, I was texting Chris Aceto, and he had cancer, was supposed to die, knew the whole thing. And he texts me and he's like, how you feel? And I said, good. I'm just trying to get caught back up. And he said, good. Don't be patient. Losers are patient. Get to work. That was what he sent me. That's a full conversation, me at the hospital. Okay, you're fine. Good. Get your ass to work. And that is who he is. That's who I am. I totally understood what he was saying. It was awesome. So that was, I hate that term, be patient. Like, yeah, patient with how it pays you back. Yes, that takes time. But the day-to-day, no, don't be patient. Be an animal. Best advice, I would say the best advice I was given, and it wasn't really words, was just what I was taught, which was outwork everyone. That's it. If your bar is higher than anyone else's, you're going to be fine. I have never in my life been the best at anything I've ever done on paper. And when you have that knowledge and you're willing to fight, it's a game changer. I think a lot of people feel like the world owes them something. And that's a confusing thing, because you already got what you were owed, which is a chance. Now you can decide what to do with it, and I don't know how much, because it's only been 4 episodes, but how much you guys have covered like on Tommy stuff, but I have probably attempted to help 10, 15 people that were in a similar spot as Tommy, where I knew like, all right, he just needs a little guidance on what he's capable of. And then you just get the fuck out of the way and watch him go. And I only have had 2 become 6-figure earners living their own life. And I would have walked all of them right down how to do it. But people just don't want to do the work, which blows my mind. I mean, Tommy knows of one literally in person that he wanted to train with me. So I said, fuck it, let's let him in. We need a 3rd guy. We can do some filming that way, and it doesn't really slow us down. It's perfect. One day he just didn't come in. And I was like, what happened? So I texted him. He goes, I think I'm good on my own. I was like, cool. Your career just ended and you don't know it. Because I knew, I was like, anybody who will piss on this, like, I don't like people training with us. Right. And I just had a good vibe, and I was obviously dead wrong. And I don't think he even trains anymore. But, that was just an example of, a lot of people get the opportunity, but if it's not gift wrapped with a bow on it, they don't know it's an opportunity. Tommy's big opportunity was, yeah, fuck it, move out here, see what happens. I don't think most people would be like, oh, this is a huge chance, let's go. Right. But the right ones do. And, now, I mean, I laugh, but, Tommy owns that city. Like the gym, the town, anybody who reached out for me, they just get directed right to him and they're off to the races. And that shit's earned, that's by having the same standard that I have, which is as high as humanly possible.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, man. Appreciate all the insight on it. Tommy, you got anything left for your guy?
No, man. I mean, this one covered for we went big having a first guest, so now we got to keep the bar high the rest of the way. But I just remember, like, it's probably a year ago or earlier, maybe 14 months ago. I think we were getting ready to train, Dusty, and I asked you, should I have a pod? Or I can't remember what we were talking about, but you just said you need a podcast like yesterday. Mm-hmm. And it just comes full circle. Like, here we are, a year later. You're the first guest on the podcast. Joe and I are 4 episodes in now. And it's just, I've talked about it a lot already, just manifest. But after the manifestation has to come the execution. And when the opportunities present themselves, you have to jump on them like a lion jumps on a gazelle. Like, there can't be a second thought. So, everything you've touched on in this episode, like, I am like living proof of, because all I did was soak up everything you've told me since we started working together in 2017. And that, it started with just emails, but I still have screenshots of emails you were sending me in 17, 18, and 19 before I moved out here that were like defining moments. I think, I don't remember if I told this here or on a different podcast, but when I quit the fire service on a whim, everyone around me was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, it's a little early for a midlife crisis. Like, what are you doing? And I told you that in an update email, and you replied with congratulations, and now I know this, that, you knew that I was betting all in on myself to make it work. And there's only certain people that could see a life decision like that and say congratulations to it. Right. The normal person, just, they see that and they're like, oh, this guy's losing it. He's on drugs.
It's the end. The end is near.
So, yeah,
all of us were born to be under a thumb, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a pretty nostalgic one for me, just to like, this moment's happening, just because I know a year ago in Muscle Factory, it was kind of like, it was put out there. And it wasn't like I went out and started a podcast the next week. Like, it had to happen as it did. But things happen if you keep your head down and just keep working and moving forward.
No doubt. Well, that's the thing too, is there's things, as much as some things are immediate, some things you need to keep things locked in that are already moving, rolling, get them settled to where you're ready for that next step. Because you can also very easily jump early and either hurt your current business or have a mediocre setup. I mean, you guys coming together, I think, is going to fit very well, and it just works. I mean, I'm working on a second podcast now that's a little outside of bodybuilding, and it's the same thing. Like, it's all there. I'm just kind of waiting for for the right moment to get clicking, because I think when I'm following these and seeing interactions, you guys will see it too. A lot of bodybuilding fans are starting to realize that there's ways to take everything you learn from bodybuilding and make your life ridiculous, or there's ways to let bodybuilding steal everything you could have ever had.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That's good.
It's I think for the people that have achieved the level of success as you have, as Tommy and I hope to do ourselves, that's a recurring theme, that it's like, not only is bodybuilding my life or one of the best parts of my life, it's like it molded every part of my life. I took the things that I learned that were must-haves in bodybuilding, and then, you just realize like, oh, this is a must-have in anything. I need to have delayed gratification. I need to have, patience in the long term. But Tommy, you say it all the time. I think it's like patience about the long term, and you're aggressive on the day-to-day. And, Dusty, you touched on that. It's like you apply some of these things to every aspect in your life, and, things just start working. So, it's a nostalgic one and a big one for Tommy, of course, but, even not having the personal relationship that you two have, I want to thank you, Dusty, for taking the time for us today. I know that you're a busy man and your time is valuable. And, you've just been paving the way for people like me and for Tommy for, damn near a decade at this point. I don't know if I would have had the same vision for myself if not for people like you. And, you kind of just showing us the blueprint, like, hey, this is how you're going to go about this. Even if you aren't, Flex Lewis, Chris Bumstead level genetics, it's like, here's a blueprint for that average guy that if you're willing to just be a psycho about it and go all in on it, there's a path to success for you too. So just really appreciate everything that you've done for people like me and for people like Tommy, and again for taking the time to join us as our debut guest. So really appreciate it. Is there anything you're involved in so much? I know you're involved in It's Just Bodybuilding. I've seen the new segment recently, Just the Tip. So anything that you want to plug now, feel free. I don't know if you're still taking clients or, if
I always take clients. Of course, Mutant has got to get love always. And then Transcend is my go-to for anyone who needs a little HRT help. That's the magic spot for that. And really, man, I mean, what I hope to promote more than anything is that anyone can do this. So I really hope like that would be a legacy worth leaving, is instead of being special, having people realize you're not special and they can do it too. So my hopes is to get invited back on when you guys have been cranking along for quite some time, and I've been watching and seeing things grow, because I think you guys would be surprised. I mean, even with us, with It's Just Bodybuilding, just to give you guys a little heads up for your future, I'm 5 years removed from the stage, and I went to the Arnold Classic after 2 years of no events, and I didn't really know what my market reach was anymore. I was like, I wonder what this is going to be like. Like I was gunning when I was doing this before. I was busier than I've ever been, and I realized what these things do. I mean, it was shocking to the point that we got done and I'm like, we got to up the ante on It's Just Bodybuilding, because I was stunned, and so was Ron. I mean, we're both retired. Neither one of us was ever some great bodybuilder. So getting that kind of reaction was like a wake up. So, treat this like you do all your other businesses, and I promise you'll be stunned what happens. We started with nothing, and now it's like, the downloads we get. I only can see YouTube, and I'm like, oh, we get 5,000-6,000 hits. That's not bad. Then I find out what the Spotify's are, and I'm like, oh, that's quite a few. Okay. So yeah, I mean, have fun with it, but definitely keep that in mind, because like I said, I was shocked by it because I was just kind of winging it and having a good time. So if you guys really blast this thing,
winging it,
you're not going to be shocked when you see 50,000 downloads. It's like, oh yeah, this was the plan. So, but I appreciate you guys having me on. It was awesome. And like I said, also, if you guys ever need help bringing anybody else on, just hit me up and I'll connect some dots for you.
Awesome.
Man,
much appreciated. We forgot to do it at the beginning.
I was just going to say, man.
God damn it.
We're
still learning.
You guys suck at it, so do we.
If you guys could, please share, like, comment, subscribe. Tell your friends.
Yeah,
ring the bell. There we go. It does help us. It shows Joe and I that we're putting out something of value that you guys are taking in and you like. So comment, engage. Feedback is always welcome, positive or negative. Obviously, we're still getting the plugs down, but this one was awesome. This one was everything that I thought it would be. So I appreciate you coming on, brother.
No doubt,
plug
guys.
your coaching.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All my stuff's in the bio below. Codes, my coaching, stylesstrength.com. So you'll always see that in the YouTube bio.
Yeah.
And make sure you guys, when you're following, throw questions in the YouTube. I love getting those. Those are always great because people will be watching the video. They'll drop a question there, and then you guys hit it the next week. I love those YouTube questions. That was what I was just going to say. So anybody that is following, please leave a question or a topic that you'd like for us to discuss in the realm of the episodes that you've seen. I mean, as an example, we had one of my clients leave like this long-winded, like multi-segmented question or comment on one of our first episodes. Tommy and I spent an hour and 15 minutes addressing just that singular comment last week. It was an entire episode. So nice. Anybody that's engaged in this and watching, your comment could lead to an entire episode or a guest in itself. So, that's something that I feel like the comments more than anything give us that feedback like, hey, there's some value here. And, we're going to keep doing it every week. So, keep up with us. And, we're looking to build something like a community of people that follow along similar to the way that you guys have, because it feels like you guys have your own online community at this point. So, thanks again for all that. Thanks for anybody that's watching. Same thing with me. All my links will be below. I do coaching through J3 University with John Jewett, and I have my own merch store. I sell shirts, and anybody listening to this, actually, by the time this drops, from the time that you hear this for the next 48 hours, you can use promo code Dusty on my store and get 20% off. So thanks again to the big man for coming on. And this was episode 4 of A Thinking Man's podcast, and we are out.